Last night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Chris is up at 93.7 The Fan with the PM team. And Chris, I can't help but think about baseball. I'm excited about it. I always am this time of the year. This division for the Pirates is somewhat doable, I think, given the fact that their starting pitching still is a problem. I was looking at the bullpen rankings, and Major League Baseball has their bullpen ranked third in all of baseball. Now, that says a lot based on the number of people they have in there and some of the quality that they have, ending with Bednar, with Chapman, if he's anything like what he has, and some of the young people they have there. But what's your overall assessment of what they can do in this division, and do you go over 75.5 wins?
I'm pretty torn on the 75.5 wins part, just because I think that their lineup is good enough to be an over 75.5 wins. I think their lineup's probably good enough with solid starting pitching, like as part of a well-rounded team, to be an over 500 lineup. I have some optimism about several of the guys in that lineup, but I just can't shake the fact that there were opportunities for them to bolster their starting rotation here, Bob, in this offseason. Guys who languished on the free agent market for a longer time than people thought, and who ended up signing deals that I know people say, oh, this guy signed for this or that guy signed for that. The Pirates could do those deals. I think it was The Athletic that had their payroll, or one site that had their payroll as the second lowest in baseball. They could do some of these deals. It's there for the taking, these short-term, maybe one-year deals that are a lot of money, but for a good player. They've got instead Bailey Falter in their starting rotation. I am not a zealot who thinks that Skenes should be in the opening day rotation. I think they have a plan for him. I think they want him on a strict innings count this year, and they want him to be using those innings when it matters in the regular season. But I don't know about you, Bob. My big point of skepticism is if that starting rotation is as rough as it has looked at times in the spring, even when Skenes comes up, they might already be out of meaningful baseball, even in that mediocre division.
Could well be, but I don't think there's all that much in that division that makes me think anyone's going to jump out to a big start and run away early. So, but yes, Skenes is one of those guys when he does come up here, with Mitch Keller. It would have been nice to have a guy like Jordan Montgomery, who went to Arizona last night. He's been hanging around, and 1 year, $25 million. Even if your desire is to bring him in and then trade him at the deadline, if he's really good like he was last year with Texas after his acquisition from St. Louis, then you might be able to get something and satisfy two needs. Someone to add to your starting pitcher right now, and then trade him if you don't want to deal with it after the fact. But you can keep him all year for $25 million. And that payroll, as you suggest, would not go up all that much, and it wouldn't factor in being the top 20 in baseball. So why not? I never understand why that is never an option.
Yeah, that's just a point of frustration. I'm not going to be the guy sitting here asking for things we know aren't going to happen, sign so-and-so to a 5-year, $200 and whatever million, some crazy deal that other teams will sign for some frontline starter. I'm just saying there are opportunities to spend a little money in the short term and bolster your team for what is a pretty mediocre-looking division. And I do feel like they left some of those opportunities out on the table this spring. The lineup should be good. The bullpen, especially when it gets healthy, obviously there's some guys dinged up right now in that regard. If and when it gets fully healthy, it should be a weapon. But we know this, Bob. Starting pitching is the most valuable commodity in the league. And how many of their starting 5 in their rotation right this second do you feel good about? Keller, definitely.
I say 2. Perez, yes, because he has experience, and I think, but the rest of them, no. And
do you feel good? But do you feel good about him, Bob, when you say Perez, or do you say like he's serviceable? Like when I say feel good, I mean I feel like that guy is a good starting pitcher, and I really only say that right this second about Keller for certain.
Well, and there are no guarantees, obviously. So I feel good about those 2. The rest I don't. Although you never know about surprises. Jared Jones may be one of these guys who goes through the system a lot quicker than anyone thought, and maybe he just has the mature attitude to get it done. If he does, and then you bring Skenes up, now you have something. If other guys like Priest or Roansy Contreras can ever figure out what they're doing. Real quick, let me give you some odds here and tell me what you think. Paul Skenes, even though he won't be up here to start, Rookie of the Year in the National League, he's 33-1, which places him right now 11th in baseball for being a Rookie of the Year. But, he's going to be short-circuited with coming up late if he gets up here, and it may hamper his chances of winning that. But would you make a bet for 33-1?
Yeah, I would consider it, because that's still pretty good odds for a guy that most people think is the best pitcher in baseball. But for him to win, given what we all know is going to be happening here with when he comes up and that truncated innings count, he would have to almost be, from the minute he gets up here, like very close to the best pitcher in all of baseball, I think, to rack up enough innings and then enough accolades, enough wins, strikeouts, etc., to win that award. Not terrible value there at 33-1, but I do think it reflects how little he's going to play relative to some of the other front runners for that award.
Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night, and there it is. Tomorrow is the opening day of Major League Baseball, even though there have been some games over in Seoul, South Korea. In the meantime, Shohei Ohtani has hired a litany of really high-powered attorneys, which is interesting, considering he drew his line in the sand here in this situation with his interpreter. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. And we have a couple of tweets here. Cheryl says, because I'm in an exceptionally good mood and because hope springs eternal on opening day, her prediction is 90 wins, 72 losses. And that may be a little bit much, but that's what she says. We also have Ron Ortiz, who has 78 and 84. And then we have Paul, who says, my breakout player is going to be Jared Jones. I was in spring training twice, saw him pitch. I really like the stuff. All right, the stuff is one thing, Chris. You're going to have all the stuff in the world. Skenes has the stuff. We've seen players have stuff. It's about locating the stuff. And for many years, we watched Tyler Glasnow try to figure where that was. And now he's a $125 million pitcher with the Dodgers, who, by the way, signed Will Smith today for $140 million. I think, if I'm adding this right, it comes out to $1.35 billion spent long-term contracts just this offseason alone.
They did defer Will Smith, though, too. They've got a ton of that money deferred, so a lot of it is going to be paid out years and years from now. But they are doing it up as they always do. They are the new West Coast laid-back evil empire, spending, spending, spending. I don't even like using the term evil empire. I mean, if that was my favorite team and I knew every year they were just going to open the checkbook over and over again because they could, I mean, that would be fun. It creates a different kind of expectation, but that would be fun. And they're not... Let's be honest, Bob. They're not nearly as hateable as the Yankees ever were when Steinbrenner was there. It's all good vibes. It's relaxed. It's mellow. It's Dodger dogs. It's Vin Scully. The late Vin Scully was out there. Everybody loves the Dodger blue. It's just, you go back, though, and you say, Jared Jones, can he locate it? Skenes, can he locate his stuff? It's going to be the question with them. It's one thing that's loomed over them as an organization for decades, really. Very few times has a pitcher come up through their system and really delivered on their promise. You could argue Garrett Cole did, but then that argument gets submarined a little bit by the fact that he immediately left for the Astros and became a completely different pitcher, much more like the dominant force that he is now. So I do think people have the right to feel skeptical about their ability to develop young pitching until they see it consistently happen with some success. And
Glasnow's another example of that. Didn't discover it until he was traded in one of the worst trades. But he goes down there, and all of a sudden it's a different pitcher. Then he got hurt. Let's go to Jim in Peters Township, our first caller tonight here on a Wednesday on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Hey, Jim.
Hey, you guys probably think I'm crazy. I say 92 wins, and I'll tell you why. Seriously, Jones, I think will be good. What was this? 24 innings pitched? I mean, come on. I mean, 24 innings. Now, I think that also. I'm trying to think the guy's name pitched last year.
Priester. Priester?
Yeah, his Priester.
He's another one though. His velocity was down a little bit last year. It's up now, which is good.
Yeah, and I read that he redesigned his slider, and that was his go-to pitch. Now,
yeah, you know what, Jim? Though I'm not going to believe until I see it. I want to see evidence of this. The potential Chris, we've dealt with our whole careers here talking about potential in players. But very few of them have ever met the production level that comes with all that potential.
Yeah, I do think there has been a developmental flaw with the organization for a while that has spanned a long time and probably spanned different people. They had a Midas touch when Jim Benedict was here with Ray Searage, and they kind of had that holistic, multi-prong approach to pitchers that they would acquire. But some of their own guys, they struggled to get the most out of. I'll name Charlie Morton as another guy that did his best work elsewhere, even though we got a little taste of what he could be like before he left Pittsburgh. I wanted to bring this up, Bob. A lot of people, you mentioned, like, how do I feel about O'Neill Cruz at 50-1? I mean, sure, that's fun to place a couple of dollars on and see how that goes. Derek Shelton, I wouldn't go near that bet, but that's another story. Mainly because you're not getting very good odds there. But I'll make this proclamation right now. They could. I don't know how I feel about picking over or under 75.5 wins. I really don't. I'm going to have to figure that out by 2 o'clock tomorrow when we have our 1 hour season preview. on the Fan with the PM team. I think the single biggest swing player for this team in terms of what they could be this year versus, in terms of does he give you good version of him or maybe not so good, is Ke'Bryan Hayes. If he gives you second half of last season offense with the defense we know is going to be there, then suddenly that's a pretty formidable looking lineup. And there are not a ton of holes, especially from like spots, 1 through 5?
Yeah.
Maybe even 1 through 6.
Whatever the order is, right.
But if Ke'Bryan Hayes is more like a guy who maybe hits 250, 260 with minimal pop, that's a different story. I think he's the single most determinative player for their fortunes this coming season.
Yeah, if he hits 10 home runs in 49 games like he ended last year, you multiply that over the rest of the season, it looks pretty good. Given his glove, that would be a big upgrade, certainly. And then I'm interested to see what Triolo does at second base. Right now, we're going back to Kirk in Manor, who joins us right now on the phone. What's up, Kirk?
How you men doing tonight? I have a quick question for you. I know we're talking about the Pirates. Recall a guy a few years ago that 21 losses, maybe 22. His name was Tom Glavine. He pitched in the bigs pretty quickly. Why won't the Pirates let teams pitch in the bigs?
It's strictly for another extra season, another extra year at the end of it. That's all. It's a money issue. Although Jared Jones surprised me because they didn't have to necessarily do that, but they did. Now that's a different situation with a second-round pick versus where Skenes was taken. But I think you may see him up here a little sooner than what we thought. I get a gut feeling
I disagree
about that.
I disagree that it's solely about money. I think it's definitely about we want an extra year of service time. We want him to not come up right away. But I really do believe, Bob, and this probably puts me on an island, that they have an internal belief that he's going to be on a strict innings count of whatever that might be, only the Pirates know. They think they can tread water or better until they're ready to call him up in, like, say, June, for example. And then they figure, okay, he can throw those innings up here and actually pitch all the way through to the end of the season. Because just imagine if they did have this innings cap, which I believe is a real thing. They started him here on opening day, more or less, and then late August comes around, they're in the thick of things, and they shut him down because that number was hard and fast, and they weren't budging off of it. People would be foaming at the mouth if the Pirates were a game and a half out of first place in the Central, and then they heard, well, Paul Skenes, he's hit his limit. Sorry, everybody. See you next year.
Yeah, but he has to pitch in the minors, too. That counts, doesn't it?
I think they're going to pitch him very minimally in the minors. I think that you're going to see them build him up as modestly as they can, eat through as few of that finite number of innings that they have planned for him in the minors, and then deploy him in the majors. So I just think that's how that's going to look.
Could be.
And I do think that there's more at play there than just money or team control.
Next destination is Mount Lebanon. We have Bill on the line. Hello, Bill. Welcome to the Sports Call.
Hey, Bob. How you doing? Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hey, Bob. I got 3 things to say. The Penguins lose one more game down in the playoffs. And Lamar Jackson, for the Steelers quarterback, he stinks. He throws too many interceptions. And the Pirates will not win their division.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about the second one. But the Penguins, to me, are all but eliminated. I mean, they keep thinking that they are not, and mathematically they're not. But I saw last night by going to the game, they were using guys who they brought up. They should do more of that. I want to see what any of Sam Poulin, I haven't seen him all year. He's doing okay down there. He's had his issues to deal with. Puustinen playing well. Even Puljujärvi got involved with that. And St. Ivany, they have guys. Let's see what they got, because I don't think they're in any contention at this point, even though as players you probably have to continue to play.
Yeah, I would like to see them use some of those young guys more, Bob, but we have to be careful here and make sure that they're judicious in doing that, or else Mike Sullivan will break out into hives at the idea of actually having to give young players a real opportunity to perform for the big club. Yeah,
but he said last night the youth had an impact, and it did. And just like, not that I'm comparing to 16 and 17, but at some point you get a little juice going with those young guys coming up and do what they're supposed to do. And I think at this point of the year, what's the point of not giving them a chance? So
sure,
but they still run into the same brick wall at the end of the season. What do they do? How do you remain to try to be competitive and try to get younger at the same time? It's hard to do both.
You have to get guys to waive no movement clauses, plain and simple. I think they have to consider that for Carlson. They should probably talk to Malkin about it. And the difference with the young guys now versus 16 and 17 and why we saw it so infrequently, who was the guy coaching those young guys in the minors in 16?
Yeah.
who knew all those guys. Mike Sullivan, they were his guys in many ways, and I think that's been a huge problem of his in the interim, that he just hasn't been willing to give young guys an extended shot and show them a little bit of faith and leeway.
And if you want to get your opinion heard, don't forget to tune in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call tonight at 10:35 on KDKA+. So give us a call at 412-575-2600. We do it every night after the 10 o'clock news. For CBS News Pittsburgh, I'm Bob Pompeani.